Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is our good friend, Jacob Hester. Hester, it's been too long, man. Been way too long. We got some catching up to do, but kind of thinking about it, it makes sense when I see that you're just kind of hanging out casually with Patrick Willis, Phil Rivers on a Monday night. So like I get it. Did you and Phil ever discuss the fact that you guys could put together a full football game basically with your kids on the field?
No, absolutely. We have. And by the way, you haven't reached out to me since 2019.
No.
Since that LSU shine wore off, I guess
I got the
receipts.
Hadn't
been on the guest list.
Whoa. Let's back up. I have texts from you that went unresponded. I will bring them up. I will go to the bat saying I've wanted to have you on.
Hey, don't let the truth get in the way of a good time. Okay.
That's true. All right. That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Okay. No, it is funny though. So yeah, Philip's got 9. Philip has 9 children. I have 4. So I've got some catching up to do, but it is funny. Monday night, I'm sitting there and, obviously, like I said, like he has a lot of children and I, love my big family, want to continue to grow it as well. And like, he was my mentor in so many things, like even like the beer we drink, like he's a Coors Light drinking guy. And I'm like, you know what? I drink Coors Light probably because of Philip. I mean, he really did though. And all jokes aside, he really taught me like how to be like a husband, a father, how to be a professional, just all those things. And so I joke all the time, like in many things in my life, Philip Rivers was kind of my mentor in those things.
Do you have a van like his, or is it like
I have a 12 passenger van. Now, I will say this, actually, I had the 12 passenger van first. So Philip actually got the 12 passenger idea off the Hester crew. Now his is probably a little bit more decked out. It's probably got some amenities in there that the Hester mobile doesn't have.
Cause he didn't get that until like 2016, right?
Right. Now, remember, he did have the SUV that he turned into a film room,
which is insane. I looked up pictures of that this morning.
When San Diego moved up to LA, he stayed in San Diego and he had the quarterback room on wheels where every single day he had a driver, and him and Kellen Clemens, the backup quarterback, they lived in the same neighborhood. They would commute every single day. Now it is in Orange County. It wasn't all the way up, to LA, but still, can you imagine every single day commuting well over an hour?
I looked at the pictures and I thought I was looking at somebody's basement film room or something. It is unbelievable. Like I mean, everybody kind of build it as, oh, you have all these kids and that's the way to do it. But being able to spend time doing that is just insane. On non-Phil Rivers topics,
we can go 30 minutes on Philip.
I mean, the fact that he's an Alabama high school football coach right now just feels so fitting, and that he knew he was doing that. Did you guys talk about kind of that first year coaching that he had?
Oh yeah, we did. I mean, he took a team in St. Michael's. I think they lost 19 straight district games before he took over. And then this year they were like 8-4 and competed. I think they made it to like the 3rd round of the Alabama playoffs. And this isn't like a small 1A school. I think they're 4A in Alabama. They're playing Biger and Gulf Shores and Spanish Fort and all these big time programs in the state. So it truly is amazing. Now, look, I don't know what kind of players they had and who they have, came in or whatever that might be, but it is amazing what a coaching system can do for you. Like Philip obviously is going to have the advantage whenever it comes to the X's and O's every Friday night. And it just shows you, hey man, if you get the guys to buy in to whatever your plan is and really believe in the system, you can go out there and not win a game in 19 times, turn it around to an 8-4 season.
He seems like a fun guy to know. Just a fun guy to be able to
one of the best. There's 2 storytellers in this world that should tell every story. Philip Rivers is one, and Charlie Whitehurst is number 2 on there. So a lot of love for the ACC here so far.
He's quarterback Jesus, right?
Yeah, Clipboard Jesus.
That's it.
Yeah,
unbelievable nickname. I'm doing this thing this year where I feel really old because it's been 10 years since I graduated from college. And you're what, like 5? Yeah, you're 5 years old.
15. It's 15 for me. It'll be our 15th anniversary of our natty this year.
That's crazy. And with you also 10 years since you last played in an NFL game, which I got to imagine there's an injury that you still feel maybe not necessarily from your NFL career, but from your college career too. Please tell me that the injury you feel most is something that happened during like that 8th fourth down run that you had in the 2007 Florida game.
Oh, I wish I had a really cool story like that. I wish I could tell you that, the labrum that I tore was like in that game. I wish I could tell you that I had, a fracture in some part of my body, but I don't have a cool story. In fact, I have a really, really bad story of the injury that probably plagues me the most. So we're playing Sunday Night Football. We're playing against the Broncos. We're in San Diego. So Connor, this, it doesn't ever rain in San Diego. So it was raining, like a sprinkle situation. And, they panic. Like on the roads, they panic. They don't really know what to do because it never happens. My whole time, it rained like 3 times in 5 years. But so the equipment manager kind of panicked as well because Qualcomm wasn't set up to drain. Like in the SEC, if it rains, all of the fields, the crown on the field, the drainage system, they're going to be dry like that. Well, not in San Diego, certainly not at the Q Nasty, as we like to call it. So, it had a little bit of water on it. So he panics. He goes and gets like those really long cleats. I don't know if you remember the old screw in cleats. They look like they're 3 inches long. So he goes and he puts those in all the skill players. I guess he considered me a skill player. Maybe that's his first mistake. So he puts them in our cleats and we're warming up. And it wasn't necessary for us to have those long cleats. My foot gets kind of stuck in the ground and I could hear my plantar fasciitis just pop. I could hear it. I felt it. I heard it. It's just like this loud noise. And it was because I had long cleats on a field that didn't need them. And that's the one that gives me the most heck still to this day. Like it's like having a rock in my shoe at all times. And so it's not like this epic battle where I had this, hit, from a safety or touchdown run. It's because I had the wrong cleats on.
That's messed up. I watched my mom tear plantar fascia playing indoor soccer, like when I was probably 10 years old. And my mom is just screaming, playing indoor soccer as a 38 or 40-year-old woman, whatever she was. And she said it felt like she thought somebody threw something at her foot. I was like, why is my foot doing this? This makes absolutely no sense. But when you kind of describe it like that, having the wrong cleat in place, because you don't practice with those cleats, do you?
No, you never wear them. Again, like the only time you ever need to wear those is if you're in like a mud pit. I don't know if you remember the LSU Penn State Capital One Bowl from 2010 or something. Like that's the only time you need cleats like that. So yeah, it's not a great story. And look, I was a fullback too, so I couldn't rest it. My foot was black on the bottom. I looked like Mr. Deeds with a frostbite on my foot. And I had to go out there and they had like this special tape job that they's like, oh yeah, it will help. They'll put this metal plate in your, no, nothing helped. It was bad. And so like practice that year, it never goes away. It was brutal. And again, not the best story, but that's what happened.
So your kids are breaking your ankles pretty much every time now in flag football. Your kids are nasty, man. Like those videos you post, I'm like, your kids are going to go viral very, very quickly for how good they are at flag football.
Yeah. They do really well. They work really hard. And so the mentality that I played with, it comes from my dad. And my dad was a Marine city policeman for over 30 years. And, he pushed us growing up, but he gave us the option. It wasn't one of those deals where you see those dads and, they're making their kids work out when they don't want to. He would give me and my brothers the option. Hey, here's what we're going to do. You can do it or you can't. But if you want to do it, if you're going to do it, you're probably going to go places. Now, if you don't, I can't promise where you're going to go. And my brothers will tell you they didn't do it. And I was the one that did it. And I loved it. It was something I looked forward to every day after school. I've told you this before, Connor. My little brother would sit in a tire. I'd wrap a chain around my waist, wrap the chain around the tire, and we'd go up and down the interstates in Shreveport, the hills, because that's about as hilly as you're going to find in Louisiana. And I would just run with my brother in this tire up and down the interstate. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. Now, I don't do things like that because we're in 2022. Now we can go get the parachutes that Nike makes. And we can run, kind of the same effect there. But yeah, we go out there and we do it. We do it 3-4 times a week. And, for some reason, they seem to enjoy it as well. And I always like to brag on my 9-year-old Hudson because, I put videos out there for his birthday. And the running back position is always one that you're either born to do it or you're not.
Yeah.
Truly believe that. You can be the best athlete in the world. You can be someone that, if we had 30 events where it came to being athletic, you'd win all 30 of them. But that doesn't mean you can play running back. In fact, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, the most athletic guy on the team doesn't play running back. You have to have a feel for it. You have to know how to cut back on a zone. You have to know how to hit the A gap on a gap scheme run, be it power, the B gap on a counter, whatever it might be. And sometimes you'll try to put your best athlete there and he's running it to the back of his offensive lineman. He just doesn't have that feel. He doesn't have that read. My man Hudson, my 9-year-old, he kind of has that. So I tell him all the time, man, you're cheating. You're cheating because he does have kind of that feel to him. So it's just fun. It's fun to watch him go out there, compete, be competitive in something. That's the thing that you miss the most when you stop playing. I mean, it doesn't matter when you stop. Whenever you stop, you miss being competitive in something. Like I always try to find something to be competitive in. And luckily my boys so far, they've kind of taken that as well.
I'm going to talk to the recruiting rankings people. I'm going to make sure that we get Hudson #1 overall, just like Arch Manning. #1 overall. And I guess what class would he be? He'd be like class of
he's going into 31. 3rd grade. He's going into 3rd grade.
I mean,
yeah,
the rankings are probably.
I mean, let me get the fingers out and toes out and start counting here a little bit. He'll be better than the 2-star that his dad was. I can promise you that.
Don't sell yourself short. You had. I went back today and I looked at your 247 Sports profile, and I was like, wait, you. First of all, it said you weighed 234 pounds, which I don't know how accurate that was. Were you a legit 234?
Oh, dude, there was a time in high school I was 253.
What?
Yeah, I was playing defensive end / like linebacker, kind of like a jack position. I was 253.
Will Anderson.
My junior year in high school. I mean, I was same height, 5'11", and we were playing Longview, Texas, and it was hotter than hot, early September, East Texas. And we had a couple of guys go down with cramps. One guy got injured, and I played running back in middle school, and they were like, hey, we had no receivers left. We were like a 5 wide shooter. John David Booty was our quarterback who played at USC.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, what are we going to do? And they're like, put Hester in the backfield. We're just going to have him, take a direct snap from the center. So that's what we did. Like the old, like you're a personal protector and they're snapping it to you on a fake. We ran that like 15 times that game. And I had like 250 yards rushing. And they're like, okay, you're a running back now. So I went from 253 to like 235 that year just because I was running all the time compared to what I used to. So yeah, I was carrying 253 in high school.
Wait a minute. I'm connecting the dots. You spent a year with Saban, then Saban goes to the Dolphins. The Dolphins have the Wildcat with Ronnie Brown, and that becomes a thing. Are you Jacob Hester, the originator of the Wildcat offense? I'm saying.
Oh man, no. Ronnie, we actually saw Ronnie on Monday. We were talking about that. It was me, him, and Kevin Falk. The Patriots surely didn't have a plan for that. I cannot even act like I'm on the same level as the Ronnie Brown Wildcat or Darren McFadden for that matter.
Oh, Wild Hog. Love me some Wild Hog. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you talked about this on Off the Bench, which, by the way, hosts with our guy T-Bob. And not that you need me to give you a plug for that and what you do, but I'm sure you've talked about the conference scheduling model and what exactly is going to happen with this. We find out that the ACC is going with the 3-5-5 model, no more divisions. So you're a good person to ask this question because, a lot of people are talking about these annual rivalries like Florida and LSU and not wanting to lose those. So you need the 3-6-6 to be able to kind of keep that with three permanent teams and then having the 6 rotating home and homes. But, the 1-7-7, I think is becoming more interesting with staying at that 8-game conference model. Where do you kind of stand on this? And do you have an idea of what you think or what you hope the SEC is going to do?
Well, I can see both sides. I can see arguing for both. I really can. We talked to a couple of coaches at the SEC spring meetings and some coaches that were in the middle or the lower half of the SEC in the standings. Like if you took a 5-year sample, they'd be in the middle or lower half. And they made great points about adding another SEC game and how difficult that would be for them if you added another game to them. And some of those coaches played in the SEC ACC challenge that we have basically in the last week of the season. And they just talked about how difficult that would really make their schedule. And they pointed to the pandemic year and how they kind of struggled in that 10-game SEC slate. So I understand their points. Before I went to Destin, I probably would have said there's no way you're going to get that done, but it really did gain some steam. I mean, I thought we were going to go in here, it's going to be 3-6 and we're going to be out. They're going to vote. And that's what we're going to have. But I think there was enough opposition that it's a real conversation still. Now, we could sit here, we could debate which one's better. Now, LSU, like where I played, it's a little bit different because we don't have a true rival. Like you could ask 10 LSU fans and you might get 4 different teams or maybe even 5 different teams. Like there's going to be some that say Alabama. There's going to be some old heads that say Ole Miss. There's going to be some early 2000 Auburn. There's going to be guys like me. I would say the Florida Gators, right? So you're going to get different opinions on who LSU's rival is now, maybe like Texas A&M, right? Obviously that's kind of manufactured over the last couple of years. So like for LSU, it's okay. Well, if you go 3-6, who are those three teams going to be? Just because it's difficult. Some teams are easier than others, but I'll be honest with you, either model that they choose, it's better than what we've had. What we've had's been awful. It's been bad. It's the only thing that the SEC doesn't do at an elite level. Like you cannot have like Georgia still not going to College Station to take on Texas A&M. Those two brands, like that can't, they've been in the league for 10 years now. If it wasn't for the pandemic, LSU would have never gone to Como and still would be a year away from going to Como. So you're talking about over a decade. Before LSU played Kentucky in this last football season, the last time LSU went to Lexington, I was running the football.
Yeah.
It was a 14-year difference. That's 3.5 recruiting classes that never went to a place within their own conference. That's wild to me. Like that can't happen. Like you're in the SEC. It's got to be on a better rotation. There's also been, we can have the argument, man, that has been beneficial for them because of the teams they get to play. Like, trust me, I hear it all the time. Now, I don't have this belief because I'm a meathead and I love competition, but there's fans like Ole Miss gets to play Vanderbilt every year, or this school gets to play them. We got to play Florida every single year. And I'm sure Florida fans probably say the same thing about having to play LSU, right? So it's just been a mess. Now, you have an opportunity to fix this mess. Which one is better? I don't know that right now. I think there's pros and cons for both of them. We can all agree it's going to be better regardless of what they've had in the past. If you're asking me to place a bet, I'd probably say the 3-6 is going to win out. That just feels like the way college football and the Power 5 is kind of going. The 1-7 is intriguing because it's on a better rotation. But I do think you just have so many teams that have so many rivals. If you did the 1-7, I'm not really sure how that would play out. Like if you're Auburn, like you want to have Alabama, obviously that's the Iron Bowl, but Georgia means a whole lot as well. Like that Georgia game means a lot to a lot of people. I mean, we could go down the list of teams and Alabama, Tennessee is the one that everybody always kind of comes back to. Like, do we really need that game? Well, there's a lot of people that think you really need that game. So because of that, I think the 3-6 probably wins out, but there's some coaches and some athletic directors that we talk to off the record. They're going to fight like hell for that 1-7.
And I totally get it. And that was the point that I kept bringing up during the week of the SEC meetings, is that I wasn't necessarily sitting here saying 1-7 is definitively better. And I am not trying to discount those rivalries at all, because I mean, honestly, like the history, you can't tell the history of the SEC without those great rivalries. You just cannot. But it is at least worth kind of taking all of those things into account. Why did the SEC have to be the first to come out with a specific model? I didn't really get that. And the SEC has always looked at it with playoff stuff. But you brought up a key point there. It's going to be an upgrade. It's going to be better. I truly think that when we look back in college football during the 2010s decade, we're going to be like, wait, why did all these teams, or why did all these conferences have divisions? Divisions, if you look back, every Power 5 conference that had divisions, they sucked. They were terrible. They were with the exception of Legends and Leaders, which doesn't even get a pass because its name was so bad.
Yes.
Every other division creation was awful, and it was so unbelievably lopsided. And for anybody that's telling me that the East is as good as the West, tell me then why one division has won 12 of the last 13 SEC championships. Okay. Like, and oh, by the way, the one that won was Georgia, who lost to an SEC West, even the national championship. So like, I look at those things and I agree with you. But it would be interesting to see how it changes history, because 2007, would you guys have played for a national championship if divisions weren't a thing? Because would Georgia have been ahead of you with the same record?
That's a great question. I'd have to go back and crunch those numbers. I mean, obviously, like we got in by the hair of our chinny chin chin. And I guess now Tennessee made it to the SEC championship game. So we'd have to go back and check
Tennessee
that out.
Made
but
it. Yeah, either way.
It's a very, very great question. And they can't take that ring away from me. so don't try to go back in time and take that one. But yeah, what a crazy year that was. But I just think for so many reasons, like you mentioned, the East and the West. Now we could go back to the 90s. I mean, when I was growing up, the East was dominating the West. It was Tennessee, it was Florida, and those were the schools that were kind of the standard. But because it does go in waves so much, just make it all one thing.
Yeah.
Make it all one thing. That way you're all intertwined, and there won't be this dominance depending on which division you're in. And the SEC doesn't have it in basketball. Works out fine.
Yep.
In baseball, they have it, but I don't know why they have it, because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
The top 12 teams are going to get into the SEC tournament. So why do we have East and West? Like, why is that even a thing? Right. So for me, it can be done. Now there's people at the SEC office that are much smarter than I am, and they're going to figure it out. And it's going to be great. I think the ACC did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
I sit here and I look at the 3 permanent opponents for all these teams. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, there's some that we can sit here and we can make a case. Maybe it's the most difficult, but there's none that's like, oh my man, that's a gauntlet. Like every single year. Like I was talking about Virginia's earlier, like Louisville, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. There's some years that could be hell.
Yeah.
But there's also some years like last year, that's not going to be anything. So I think they did a really nice job. I think the ACC, they took their time. They looked at it. The SEC has certainly been looking at this. There's nothing that the SEC can't do. Anything the SEC does, they do it at the highest level. We all know that. So now that they've had time, now that college football is changing, I do think they're going to come out with something. Not every fan's going to be happy because, come on, it is the SEC. But I think they're going to come out with something that is fair, that is balanced, that's competitive as well. Because I want to see Georgia LSU. I want to see Florida and Alabama more. I want to see all of these matchups. I want to see Texas A&M and Florida. I want to see Kentucky take on whoever it might be, Ole Miss, like whoever it is. Like I want to see more matchups because like there's a lot of guys that I sit here and I do radio with, and I'm like, yeah, we never got to play against y'all. Like I was just with Aaron Murray last weekend, and he was in Baton Rouge, and we're hanging out. I'm showing him around. He's like, yeah, I've never been here. Like, wait, like you never played in Tiger Stadium? He goes, no, man, we played it in the SEC championship game one year, and they came to us in Athens. He's like, I've never been inside a Tiger Stadium. I'm like, oh, we're going to fix that right now. Let's go. And so I take him over there, but it's just wild. Like I only went to Athens one time 2004. I think David Green just completed another pass, by the way, but that's the only time I got a chance to go there. I miss South Carolina. I hear that atmosphere is fantastic. I still haven't been. It's the only SEC stadium that I've not been to. So you shouldn't miss any games. If you stay 4 years, you shouldn't miss any places in your conference. And that's just going to balance everything out. It's going to make the competitive edge better. You're going to get better matchups.
Agreed.
Like sign me up for all the matchups that we just said. And there's going to be some that in the future are going to be matchups we're not even talking about now that are going to be great. Like there's teams in the East that I think are close to getting to a point where they're in the top tier, Kentucky, Tennessee, teams like that. So it's going to be better. I can't wait to see what the SEC does because I do, again, think the ACC got it right.
You told me you were like a kid watching your parents go through divorce with the Saban and Jimbo stuff. You were on that 2004 LSU team, obviously. You know both coaches well. Do you remember any sort of interaction that they had back in 2004 that suggested that there were cracks in the foundation? Because I never would have asked you that question before hearing this a month ago. But Jimbo saying that he turned down future chances to work with Saban after 2004 sort of made that seem like there was a change in their relationship. Did you ever see any sort of friction between them? Or was it pretty much, hey, we're buddy, we're on the same team?
The only time I ever saw anything was if we were having like a 2-minute drill and both the coaches were on the field, and you're going to get that everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, like I always said, Jimbo's the head coach of the offense instead of the offense coordinator. Because Nick would be over on the defensive side of things, and you wouldn't really see him if you were an offensive player unless you were trying to play both ways like I was as a freshman, and you're swimming in it, wondering which way is up, which way is down. But you never really interacted with him if you were an offensive player. Same thing, obviously, if you're on defense with Jimbo. But when we'd come together, we'd have a 2-minute drill. And obviously, like you'd have some heated back and forth, but that's everywhere. That's every offense and defensive coordinator. And obviously, they're both big personalities, and every coach, every player, we all have egos. And so, some of that's always going to come out. Now, you'd hear rumors like, why didn't Jimbo go to Miami? Derek Dooley went to Miami. Will Muschamp went to Miami with Coach Saban. Why didn't Jimbo? That was a question, but it never really got answered. But as far as being on the field with both of them, I never saw anything but respect between the two. And that's why that situation was a little awkward for me, because if it's not for Nick Saban, I'm not here doing this interview. You're not interested in talking to me because I don't know where I end up. I mean, Coach Saban had a plan for me. He had a vision for me. He never stopped recruiting me. The only reason I got an offer from LSU, as I've told you before, is because he happened to be at my high school practice and watched me in Oklahoma drill. And he gives me the offer, and I'm lucky enough to sit here and talk to you and win a national, the whole deal. But Jimbo, obviously, he lets me play running back at LSU. I'm a 2-star fullback, and he lets me work my way into being the starting tailback for 2 years at LSU. Like, there's not a lot of people that would give me that opportunity either. So it was weird. It's like I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm in the middle of this. It's like Nick's making his point, and then Jimbo with the rebuttal. How about the rebuttal? I mean, T-Bob and I are sitting in studio, and we've got both of our phones out, and we're watching it, and we're like making like meme faces at each other, like, oh my God, like, did he just say that again? It was wild. So to ever see that, for it to get to that point, no, I would have never guessed that. I thought they had a great working relationship. I thought there was a lot of respect between the two. That feels like it's gone now. I mean, you don't come with the rebuttal that Jimbo did unless there was something there. So I don't know when that took place. I don't feel like it took place necessarily in front of any of us. Now we know Nick's he's a grinder. Like, he's going to be hard on his coaching staff. He'll tell you that. I mean, as far as like, there's always a misconception about what he is to his players. Nick's great to his players. If you work hard, if you show up on time, if you do the things that you're supposed to do while you're at LSU or while you're at Alabama now, you're not going to have one problem with Nick. He's never going to yell at you. He's not going to freak out on you like everybody says. Is he demanding? Well, yeah, he should be. He's the head coach at LSU. He's the head coach at Alabama. So he should be demanding. But it's just like when I played for Peyton Manning. People are like, hey, how was it? And I was like, well, yeah, he's demanding. You know why? Because you're not going to beat him in the building, right? And he's not going to leave before you leave. So if he's putting in the work and he's the greatest of all time, or one of them, just like Nick's one of the greatest of all time, yeah, pipsqueak, the fullback, you better be in there doing the same things, because why wouldn't you be? So I completely understand that. I never had a problem, obviously, with either one of them, but it was still a shock to me that they were going after each other, certainly the Jimbo portion of it.
I think Jimbo actually implied that you, as the last scholarship player of that 2004 class for LSU, I think he implied that you got a bag, because he said that, that guys have always been getting paid, and that, that it's legal now. But he also said that we need to look into Saban's past with how he recruited. So you can kind of clear up the air here now that the statute of limitations is up, and just say that you got a bag from LSU.
Right. Connor, I thought I was going to have to pay LSU for me to go there. So there was no bags being given to me. Hell, I would have taken a Caniac from Raising Cane's, and that would have been enough for me. There was no enticement for me to go to LSU outside of me being from Louisiana and not being a dummy and saying, hey, if LSU's offering you, it doesn't matter who's there, you go. So
good offers, I missed out. Really good offers.
It was weird. It was weird. My offer list compared to where I was ranked was odd. It was very, very odd.
I was like, why didn't you go to Miami? And then I looked at their class. I was like, oh, they had 4 running backs in that class. That probably was a really good reason. Why didn't you go to Oklahoma? Oh, why didn't you go to Notre Dame? And then looking at like all the different transitions. So it kind of makes sense that you held out for LSU.
Adrian Peterson was in my recruiting class, and I knew one thing. Wherever he goes, I'm not going, because I watched his highlight tape. That's one thing I knew for sure.
If you were not going to LSU, did you have a backup plan? Because you didn't even get the offer until what, December?
Right. Yeah. My LSU offer, it was a very strange deal. My LSU offer, because it did come late, although Saban never stopped talking to me. So you never know how recruiting works out. Was it like, hey, is he talking to other running backs? Is he waiting on other running backs to commit, not commit, whatever it might be? I was actually committed to Texas for a very long time. And, honestly, full disclosure, I'm waiting on the LSU offer. That's what I want. I mean, I'm from Louisiana. So before that came in, though, I kind of fell out of love with Texas. They were, hey, we're not recruiting any other running backs. And then you go to this camp, and 4 of the running backs, like, yeah, just talk to Texas the other day. Like, I have a full offer. Like, oh, like, just tell me if you're recruiting 4 of the running backs. I don't care. You're supposed to. So like things like that weren't working out. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to open up my recruitment. And John David Booty was my high school quarterback, as I said. So, SC, like, hey, can I get them interested? And then Miami, Brock Berlin, one of my other high school quarterbacks, was the quarterback in Miami at the time. And so they were really interested. They recruited me as hard as anyone outside of LSU there at the end. So that was an option for me. For USC, Steve Sarkisian, he told me the story at the Senior Bowl. He was fighting for me. He said I was on the table, and they couldn't get the guy who recruited the area to sign off on giving me the offer there. So the SV never materialized, and the Miami portion of it. So if you ask me who number 2 was, I would probably say it was probably Miami at the time.
So basically, Pete Carroll is the reason that you did not end up at USC. Because if you had gotten that, or would you have just like at the last minute if you had gotten the LSU offer?
Yeah, once I got LSU, it was no brainer. Like before then, I mean, it would have been a real option. I mean, just because you're looking for some sense of a familiar face, you're looking for maybe a tie there. And, my hometown, like in Shreveport, Louisiana, if you don't go to LSU, well, where else are you going to go? You're kind of wide open. And so, like, knowing that I had my high school quarterback, someone, John David Booty, that was, in the future going to be in my wedding, we were that close. Like, that's always very, very intriguing. And, to go down to Miami now, it would have been also very difficult because, as you know, I was dating my wife, who I'm, obviously married to for 15 years coming up this summer. We were dating in high school. So, my father-in-law probably would have said, hey, we're not paying out-of-state tuition to USC. That's probably going to get shut down pretty quick. So all things worked out the way they were supposed to.
Yes, they did. That's for sure. Let's close with a couple of current LSU questions. I am terrified of anything that can get in Kayshon Boutte's way. The 2 ankle surgeries, the relationship with Brian Kelly, it just kind of seems like there are a lot of things working against him. Sell me why he's ready to kind of be that guy this year.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally 5 feet away from him in Lexington when he hurt his ankle. I mean, it was an incredible catch, but you knew it was going to be serious. So he had a serious injury. It wasn't one of those ones where he got hurt, he's going to be out 3 weeks. He shut it down because he is Kayshon, because he knows what he's going to be in the future. I mean, it was a serious injury, and those are difficult. They're difficult to come back from mentally and physically. And you've always been a guy that's always out there and always been one of the best on the field. And then all of a sudden, like, you feel limited. You feel like, man, am I ever going to be the guy that I was before I got hurt? So I think Kayshon probably went through some of that. He's trying to come back. He had setback after setback because it was, again, a very serious injury. And then you've got this brand new coaching staff coming in, right? You lose, have had a couple of different coordinators. You have a new head coach now. And that relationship, as Kayshon was going through rehab, it needed some work. And Brian Kelly, like you mentioned, like, he told everybody, he was like, no, we got some work to do. We've got to get Kayshon back to where he needs to be. Now, I can tell you, going to spring practice, he was there. Was he there in a boot? Yeah, he was there in a boot, but he was watching. He was around the program. A lot of rumors swirling that he was going to be a guy that put himself in the portal to see what kind of NIL deal he could get. There was never really any truth to that, having conversations with Kayshon. So I think now he's finally back to a point where he is healthy. Because he wasn't able to do anything. I mean, during the springtime, I mean, he's in a boot. He hasn't been able to do anything. So now he's going through that process of getting himself in shape, getting back to running routes, feeling comfortable, feeling confident that you're not going to have the same injury on every cut that you have. And so it was a process. I mean, it was an 8-month process to kind of get him back. But now, you see him out there at the Manning camp throwing with Miles. He's around the team. He's set up for a big season. He's obviously the best player that LSU has, one of the best players in the country. So it's been a long process. There's been some ebbs and flows without question. I'd be lying if I said there was anything else, but it does feel like it's in the right position for him to go out there and succeed.
We've both been pretty big Miles Brennan guys for a long time, but I really find myself wondering if Brian Kelly thinks that he has his next Ian Book with Jaden Daniels, which nobody is going to make that comp, because I think the first and only time we've actually seen a cross race comparison with people saying that Malik Willis was like Josh Allen, so that's not going to come about. You're not really going to hear that. If I told you that you had to bet your green suit on correctly picking LSU starting quarterback, who's your guy?
You wish you had that green suit.
I really do. I bring that up every time with you.
I can hear it in your voice. So the in-book comp to me is wrong for Jaden Daniels. Okay. You know why? Because I think Garrett Nussmeier is Ian Book.
Okay.
I think Garrett Nussmeier, like watching him, and I've gone back and I probably watched like 4 of Ian Book's games when he was at Notre Dame. And I go back, it's a limited sample size for Nuss. I watched the Arkansas game. I watched the spring game. He's much more the same skill set that Book had. Jaden Daniels has a different skill set. Not bad, not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just a different skill set. It's a 3-man competition. Garrett Nussmeier's in this competition. I mean, he is firmly in it. When you went out to the spring, I mean, he kind of put himself in the territory of being a starter. Like he played extremely well. Now Miles was coming back as well from an injury. He hadn't thrown in a long time. Jaden Daniels, I'm sure his head's spinning, moving from Arizona to Baton Rouge. But the thing LSU has to do, and they have to make sure that they stay on this schedule. When you get into camp, you can't go into week 3 with 3 quarterbacks. You can't do it. It's just you have to be ready. Florida State has a game before you in week 0. You got to be ready for that week 1 game against the Seminoles. They have to, after week 1, cut from 3 to 2. And regardless of who that 2 is, you can't worry about hurt feelings. You got to go from 3 to 2, and then you got to the next week go from 2 to 1. And that quarterback needs 2 weeks to be the starter, to be the guy, for everybody to know this is our leader, this is our voice. Now, how that plays out, anybody that came on here and told you would be guessing. I mean, it is a true quarterback competition. We could go back in the past and say, man, yeah, he looks like Ian Book, or he looks like another Brian Kelly quarterback that he had, or he looks like Desmond Ridder, right? A lot of people, because Mike Denbrock obviously was with Ridder last year. But I don't think they have any idea right now. I think it's everybody right now is on the same level. And I hope they stay to that time table there. They do have a unique situation, the fact that Denbrock is a tight ends coach as the offensive coordinator, not a quarterback coach. So you're going to have a couple of different voices probably giving their input on who should be the starting quarterback. Joe Sloan comes over. He's obviously a guy who's had coordinator experience at Louisiana Tech. He was really close to getting a head job as well. He comes over to be the quarterback coach there for LSU. So you're going to have multiple voices, multiple guys, fighting for another quarterback to be the starter probably. So we'll see how that plays out.
Sounds like you don't want to get rid of your green suit. Too bad.
Oh, I really like my green suit. Now, look, we're pulling from Miles Brennan as far as like the best that can be for that young man.
Yeah.
In a day and age when everybody transfers, I mean, he has stayed the course. Think about his career. He comes in his freshman year with a lot of praise, a lot of hype. Danny Etling's the quarterback. Miles would get in a little bit here. He'd get in a little bit there. He never was given the job because they didn't want to trust a freshman quarterback. He does, even that Troy game, the embarrassing loss to Troy, like he comes in, he actually leads them, gets a score there. And you thought, okay, here's the time he's going to take over, but they never gave him that opportunity. And then when it is your time, the next year, you're fighting for the job with Lowell Narcisse and Justin McMillan. Well, here comes a guy named Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow comes down from Ohio. He wins the job in camp, and they go win a Fiesta Bowl. We know what happens the next season, and then it's your time. It's your time to be the guy finally, and you're torching the 3 teams that you play. I mean, you're throwing for like 400 a game, and then you have a freak injury, one that was so freakish. The team doctors had never seen it.
Yeah.
They reached out to other staffs. They had never seen it. If he would have had the surgery, they said it would have been the Miles Brennan surgery. Like they would have named the surgery after him. He decides not to have surgery. Okay, I'm going to rehab it. Then you come back the next year, you're fighting with Max Johnson, and you have a freak accident. It's like time and time again, he's had these roadblocks in his career, and then Max plays really well. You put yourself in the portal because it looks like Max is going to be the quarterback for the next season or two. And then when Max Johnson surprises a lot of people and goes to A&M, you're like, hey, I'm going to be back. I've been loyal to LSU. I want to be the starting quarterback at LSU. And, he's been through like 3 or 4 coordinators and 3 head coaches. So he's been through it all. I mean, he has been through like the whole gambit of what his career has looked like. So you root for a guy like that. You want the best man to win the job, but, you hope good things for people like Miles Brennan, that in a day and age when it would have been very easy to not compete and to go somewhere else, maybe even on a group of 5 level, he stuck around and he's still at LSU. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, there's a lot of different styles in that quarterback room. I think it's a very strong quarterback room. I mean, Walker Howard is a 5-star freshman that's also in that quarterback room, but it's going to be a hell of a competition. And I love it. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Last one for you. I want to be the official driver of the Noah Cain bandwagon. And
okay.
I realize that with your platform, your experience at the position, you're going to be given access to the driver's seat before anybody. So I guess I can live with that as long as I get to ride shotgun.
All right, that's completely fine. Look, if there is a running back and he's doing really well and you want to hop on board, I'll be completely okay with that. Now, That's another position room that's going to be interesting, right? You got John Emery. What are you going to get from John? John's been working his butt off for a year to get back to being eligible and to be able to be out there. Then you've got a guy. Look, we've seen Noah Kane do it. Last year wasn't the best sample size. The offensive line struggles for Penn State were bad. I mean, they were bad. You go back and watch that all 22. You want to close your eyes now. But there's also freshman year where he was a really good player. Armani Goodwin's another really good player. So, you have a running back transfer out to Cincinnati, but you've got a 3-man race there. So that's another one. It's going to be very intriguing. Like, John Emery has the skill set. He's got the talent. We've never seen it for a full season. Will this be the year? You never know.
Hester, you're the best, man. Looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Absolutely, man. You glad to be back in Atlanta? How do you feel about media days? I mean, Birmingham, Atlanta, do you care?
I don't care as much. Look, I'm going wherever it is. If they have it in Nashville, I'm there with bells on. They can have it in Vegas. I'll be there with bells on. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to hate on Hoover. You can put it anywhere. I don't mind being between two belts. I don't think that's necessarily negative the way that some make it out to be, but Atlanta's fine. No problem with Atlanta. Love Atlanta.
Let's be honest here. Let's just do the right thing, and every event should be held in New Orleans.
Yes. Okay. That's perfectly fine. No issue with that whatsoever.
I mean, I've been to championships in college. I've been to Super Bowls. I was just at the Final Four. Am I biased? Yes, but there's not a city that is better set up to host events than New Orleans. It's a walking city. It stays open until as late as you want it to stay open. There's something to do. The food's amazing. I'm just saying, if Commissioner Sankey, if you happen to listen to this, go ahead, put New Orleans in the rotation.
Any place that has open container laws puts you ahead in that upper echelon, and New Orleans checks that box.
Yep.
No doubt about it, man. Hester, we'll do it again soon, man.
Sounds good, brother.